Welcome back to Reid Between the Lines. Great to have you back. As always, we invite you to join us on our social networks at facebook.com/RBTL Sports, as well as on Twitter at RBTL Sports. This week we start with our Four Down segment as we discuss Carey Price. Is he a legitimate contender to be considered for the Hart Trophy? We welcome this man right here, Eric Engels from SiriusXM NHL Network. Great to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Great to be here.
To your right is David Hurley, RBTL contributor. Always a pleasure to have you.
Glad to be back.
And to my left, Anthony Cornelli, the quiet but deadly RBTL contributor. Great to see you. All right, let's start with you, Anthony. First and foremost, there's no denying that Carey Price has had a great season, probably one of the best in a long time. PK Subban's taking a little bit of his thunder away. Is he a legitimate contender for the Hart Trophy?
I think he is a legitimate contender for the Hart Trophy. I mean, we can steer away from the statistics. We all know what stats he's doing. You have to look at the division and the conference. At the beginning of the year, we said the Eastern Conference wasn't going to compete with the West, but it stepped up its game. Mm-hmm. And for Carey Price to be doing what he's doing in the tough division that we have, he has to be considered a Hart Trophy candidate.
But PK Subban, though, is also having a great season. Do you feel that by any chance that might take away? Do you think that might take away from
No,
Carey
absolutely not. I think that the Hart Trophy is going to be with the Vezina. I think it's going to become either PK Rene or it's going to be Carey Price. The way they've been playing this year has been unbelievable. I mean, if you look at Carey Price, just the way he's making saves, we saw it in the Boston game on Sunday. He played lights out. He was what carried that team to a victory.
First time they swept them in 7 years, right?
Listen, when it comes to the Hart Trophy, it's all about how important you are to your own team and whether or not your team is successful. The Montreal Canadiens, there's no argument that they're one of the most successful teams in the National Hockey League. But when it comes down to it, at the root of their success is Carey Price, and he's putting up the best numbers of his career. We're 52 games into the season. By the time we get to Thursday, we'll be a few more under the belt, 2 more under the belt, and I don't think anything's going to change the conversation in terms of what Carey Price is offering. This guy, forget the numbers, he's just been sensational. I speak to Clément Jaudoin, as the assistant coach of the Montreal Canadiens earlier last week, and said, you know, there's something about this guy, not just in terms of his skill and his size.
His
demeanor, but also the way his anticipation, the way he reads the play is second to none.
And he's often criticized for that, right? Because a lot of guys would say that he lacks the, nonchalant, lacks the energy, lacks that fire that you would find in a Tim Thomas or a Hasek if we go a little bit further back. But it's not easy for a goaltender to win the Hart Trophy because the highest plateau, the highest trophy, the highest accolade you can win is the Vezina, but does he have enough to
You have
do
Jose
this year?
Theodore that did it, you had Dominic Hasek that won the Hart and the Vezina. It's going to go together this year, and I really do think it's in between Carey Price and PK Rene. I mean, PK Rene is doing a great job in Nashville, so he's the one that's really going to hinder Carey Price's chance of winning.
And it's not just about Price, it's about the way the team plays in front of him. Look, for a majority of their games, they've been outpossessed, they've been outchanced. The numbers, which we're all forced to focus on quite readily, support that argument and make it so much more irrelevant that Carey Price has been as good as he's been. I mean, this is a guy, you have to give credit to the team as well. I think they're undervalued and underrated in terms of the way they play because of the possession numbers. But you look at what Carey Price has offered this year, and he just gives them the confidence to go out there and play a game that's not necessarily their best and continue to win.
I believe for a couple of frustrated Habs fans, maybe they think that Carey Price has been in the contention or should have been on a ballot for a Hart or Vezina. In the last 2-3 years. But I mean, this year, and like you said, the Canadiens have been one of the better teams in the league, but they've been outpossessed, outshot every single game. And Carey Price is making saves. Like you said, a lot of people think he's nonchalant. A lot of people think he doesn't bring that fire that most goalies do. But he's just making those saves with ease. He's eyes closed. He just throws out a blocker and makes a save.
He's giving his players a lot of confidence as well. I mean, having him back there is that extra motivation of knowing you can take a little bit more liberty because you got that guy saving your bacon at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
He has a tremendous balance. Carey Price has a tremendous balance of that calm, cool, collected Dryden-like statue and ferocity. He is a fierce competitor. He competes for every puck. And you watch him after a bad game where he's let in a couple bad goals and he'll face the media and be calm and collected.
And he'll bounce back.
Walk down the hall and break a stick or throw a garbage can. And nobody sees that on the camera. But when you see it in the room, you know how fierce of a competitor Carey Price is.
One guy who's not calm and collected is you right there, sir. We love the energy you're bringing to the show. Stay with us because we're switching up gears. We're going to the NBA. We're talking about James Dolan, owner of the New York Knicks. You will not believe what he wrote to a fan. Stay with us. All that and more happening right here on Reid Between the Lines.
Reid Between the Lines is brought to you by EliteSportsTours.ca. What are you doing this weekend?
Welcome back to Reid Between the Lines. As we're switching gears, we're talking NBA and the owner of the New York Knicks, James Dolan. You will not believe what he had to say to a disgruntled fan. We welcome back this man right here, Eric Engels from Sirius XM, NHL Network. To your right is David Hurley, and to my left, Anthony Cornelli. Okay, I've seen a few letters from owners. I've seen a few letters from fans who are not pleased with their team. I want to read you word for word what owner James Dolan had to say to a fan who was upset about how much this team sucks in the last couple of years. He says, Mr. Bierman, you are a sad person. Why would anybody write such a hateful letter? I'm just guessing, but I'll bet my life you're a mess, and you're a hateful mess. What you've done that anyone would consider positive or nice, I'm betting nothing. In fact, I'll bet you're a negative force in everyone who comes in contact with you. You most likely have made your family miserable, alcoholic maybe. I just celebrated my 21-year anniversary of sobriety. You should try it. Maybe it'll help you become a person that folks would like to have around. In the meantime, and in the meanwhile, start rooting for the Nets because the Knicks don't want you. And he ends off saying, respectfully, James Dolan. There's not going to be too many guys who are going to side with him on this one.
There's not respectfully on that one. That's irresponsible. I mean, you hold your players to a higher standard. They go into the stadium and they play their game, and fans heckle them all the time. We have issues where a player flips the bird, he gets fined $25,000. You can't talk back to the fans negatively. How does an owner come out and send an email to a disgruntled fan? I understand that he's a disgruntled fan and the owner doesn't want to read that kind of stuff, but your product's terrible. The New York Knicks have sucked for, like you said, 5 years.
It's a huge market too. It's a huge basketball market too, right?
Listen, if James Dolan has made enough money in his life to be able to be the owner of the New York Knicks, you'd think that he'd have some sort of angle on how to work things from a public relations standpoint. Yeah. To think that he could write this letter and not think that it would get out to the public is one thing. You look at any business out there that gets degraded online by a fan or somebody who's buying their products, it's the greatest sales opportunity in an online forum to respond to that person and say, here's what we're going to do for you. You come in, we'll show you, we'll prove you differently. Any restaurant out there will tell you the same. James Dolan should have reacted by sending this guy a letter and telling him, come over to my office, I'm going to show you how we run things, and maybe you can have an informed opinion on how we operate the New York Knicks.
Any chance that he might backtrack on this? Any chance that he might?
No, there's no backtracking. There's no way to move backwards.
What has been said has been said. Again, professional sport is for the fans. If it wasn't for the fans, these athletes wouldn't make the big money. The pressure's on them. But he's the owner of the team. Yes, it's his product, but he's not the GM. He's not the coach. He's not the players. So I believe what he said is just out of his own frustration. He's just taking it out a little bit on his fans.
Yeah, you can't be taking it out on your fans.
But the way lock yourself in the bathroom, close the door, and start screaming at the mirror. Yeah. Don't go writing to one of your fans who pays for your product when they are fully valid in their opinion and what they're talking about to him.
I don't think there was anything,
in that manner. It's
I don't think there was anything wrong with the letter. I mean, he was.
Well, I think
alcoholism.
Well,
that's something that you don't question.
It was well written. It was professionally written.
Let's take that away. All right, let's take a step back.
There was typos all over it, by the way.
Let's take a step back and let's remove the alcoholic part and the personal jabs he makes to him. Is he in the wrong then? Is it the tone of the letter that bothers you, or is it what the letter said, right?
The content of the letter is the problem. The content of the letter ignores the fact that the fan has a problem with what the team is doing, and the fan is justified with the team's results. And when it comes down to it, the owner has two options. One, he can completely ignore the letter because he doesn't have to respond to every fan that finds his email address and send something along. Or two, he can find a way to change that fan's opinion and potentially even create a great PR initiative for the team by making a public thing of it. Because in today's day and age, to think that's not going to get out there is absolutely absurd and ignorant. And as a 73-year-old man, I have to think that age plays a relevance there, that he's so ignorant that he wouldn't think that it would get out there.
No, I think as a 73-year-old man, being able to use an email is already impressive, and the fact that he answered a billionaire would answer an email to like a disgruntled fan, I think that's pretty impressive already.
So, okay,
I would have been happy as a fan.
I agree that the simple fact that he's taken the time to address the fan is fine in itself, something. But I disagree. I think the tone that was used in this is unprofessional to the point where now it opens up the question of Adam Silver jumping in here and will he if we move forward.
He should be fined. He should be fined a big amount. I'm hoping it's going to be close to $100,000. It's very irresponsible. You're owner of the New York Knicks. You're hosting the NBA All-Star Game this weekend with the Nets. This is something that can't be done. It's something that should never be done. And as an owner, we saw it last year with the LA Clippers. As an owner, you have to be above standards. You have to be really the face
Crystal clean all the time.
Exactly. And you can't be doing things
It's
like that.
a blight on the brand for the NBA. There's no question about it. I agree absolutely with what Dave just said. He's got to be held accountable by the NBA commissioner. And when it comes down to it, the New York Knicks have to look themselves in the mirror and start figuring out how they should be running as an organization. Because I guarantee you, the PR manager for that team reading that email has a pounding headache right now.
We're all human, gentlemen.
Stay right there. After the break, we're changing gears. We're going back to hockey. We're talking about Alex Galchenyuk. Does he have what it takes? Does he have the skill set to become one of the biggest superstars in the National Hockey League? Don't go anywhere.
Reid Between the Lines is brought to you by Diadora. Available at diadora.com.
All right, it's time for our Pretender Contender segment as we're discussing Alex Galchenyuk. Does he have the goods to make it to the next level and become an NHL superstar? We welcome back Eric Engels, David Hurley, and Anthony Cornelli. Great to see you, gentlemen. All right, let's talk about Alex Galchenyuk. There's no denying the fact that he is someone that the Canadians want to lean on moving forward, but is he a pretender or contender? Does he have all the goods that it takes? Start with you, David.
I'd like to think he's a contender, but statistics show right now that he's a bit of a pretender. I mean, he's on pace for 55 points. If you want him to be your number one centerman, you want him to be that guy who's going to be making the next step, you got to be producing a little bit more.
But is that not a reflection of the time? But is that not a reflection of the time he's getting on the ice as well?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Michel Therrien is a little bit to blame for that. I mean, he's been taking him slowly, kind of what he did with Malkin, but Malkin exceeded expectations. I'm waiting for Galchenyuk to make that next step to become elite. Right now, he's not elite.
Well, waiting was the most important word you just used. You know what? There's no question that Alex Galchenyuk is a contender to be a top-line center in the NHL. The question is whether he'll be one this year. And I think, you have to let him grow and mature into the role. At his age, he's produced on the level with some of the greatest players in the NHL today, Steven Stamkos, Alex Ovechkin, these kinds of players that at his age were producing in a very similar way.
A little more
I have to disagree. I think he's a pretender. I know progressively in the last 3 seasons he has gotten better. He has gotten a little bit more ice time. He got bumped to the first line, but I don't think he's what the Canadians need as a first line center to take them into the future, to take them into becoming a Stanley Cup contender. I mean, he's no Getzlav or he's no Vinny Danfus, who's my favorite player of the Montreal Canadiens. And he's not putting up the numbers.
He's got the skill set to be the guy.
Right.
You see it when he's playmaking, the way he skates with the puck, the way he dekes. I mean, this guy's got talent written all over him. He would have been the first overall pick in my books that year if he didn't blow out his knee.
I think he's a pretender specifically only because of Michel Therrien. Not because of his skill set, not because of the talent, but because of the way that they're slowly grooming him to be that first-line centerman. I'd be curious to know your point of view, Eric, with regards to magical players like these, superstar players like these, who have the potential but are held back a little bit too much. There are some guys who don't need or don't have the same learning curve. Do you think that Alex Galchenyuk is one of them, that right now holding him back is doing him more harm than good?
I don't think he's been held back. I think actually he's been coddled a little bit, and they've done their best to shelter him from certain matchups.
So you think they've been using him enough?
I think if you look back through the history of the game and superstar players, you want to look at a primary example. Look at Max Pacioretty. Here's a guy that came into the league, and everybody said he was never going to be a power forward or an elite power forward. And last year, even when they watched him in the playoffs, said he'll never be a playoff performer. Here's a guy that has gotten better every single year. Max Pacioretty is now 26 years old. At 21, 22 years old, he was learning how to play hockey.
Yeah.
Alex Galchenyuk is doing the same as a guy who started in the National Hockey League at 19 years old, and now at 21, or he's almost 21, is going to become a very good player when he gets that man strength and becomes 22, 23, 24. And over the next couple of years that the Canadians are expected to contend, he's going to get there. He needs the opportunity to prove himself up the middle for sure, but they need to continue to shelter him and give him the opportunity to grow his confidence.
They also need to give him somebody else to play with, I think. I think they need to give him a guy that he's going to have chemistry for a long run. I'd like to see him with Pacioretty more. We had that opportunity this year, and we saw him have some good success. But I'd like to see maybe someone new, a new face in the Montreal Canadiens organization.
That's always the problem with Montreal, is that we don't have that kind of depth, and we're always trying to jangle the lines and say, okay, he can't play with him, he needs to play with him.
I think we have Sherbak that's going to be in the future. I think is the guy that the Montreal Canadiens are hoping is going to be that guy with Galchenyuk to be the scoring winger.
So the fact that you believe that long-term he'll be that guy, is that for you the sense that that Bergevin will not go after a big power center? He will not go after that, considering the fact that he's got Galchenyuk? Does he believe enough in Galchenyuk?
I think right now Marc Bergevin's plan has to be to allow Alex Galchenyuk to mature into that role. Don't expect to see a centerman come here between now and the trade deadline, because that's not going to happen. over the next couple of years, Marc Bergevin has cleared a lot of space off that cap, and the maturation of several of his young players has put the Canadians in a position that they're going to contend for a few years coming.
Yeah.
And you know, even without those moves, right now, the Canadians are a team that can contend with Carey Price and nets as a team that's proven that every time they have to prove themselves, they do it. They go out and win, and they win in an impressive fashion like they did against the Bruins.
When they go up against the weaker teams and you expect them to go by them.
But who cares about that?
Well, because it's a work ethic thing, right? It becomes a work ethic thing. It's a lot of up and down. You don't see that consistency that you see out west, that a lot of these Western teams do not take these teams for granted. The loss to me against Buffalo was a warning sign.
Adam, I think that's about reassuring the fans. If you go around that room in the Montreal Canadiens, they know who they are. They know who they can be. And whenever they want to prove that they can be the team that people want them to be, they go out and do it.
On that note, it was great having you on the show. We'd love to have you back. For those who don't know what you're doing and where they can find your work, where can they catch you?
Yeah, I'm a reporter for Sirius XM NHL Network. You can hear me on there on Sirius with several of their hosts. And also I read a blog for hockeybuzz.com and contribute freelance to TSN 690 and other radio stations around town and some CTV television work. So I'm kind of all over the place.
Good. Great to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Stay with us. I face off right after the break. You don't want to miss it.
Reid Between the Lines is brought to you by Tilmar.ca. Innovative designs in the ceramic industry.
If there's one sports market that doesn't lack any storylines, it's Cleveland, Ohio. And who better to talk to than the Ohio sports guy himself, Josh Lang. Thanks for taking the time, Josh. Great to see you.
Hey, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, let's talk about Johnny Manziel, rehab. Is this a sign of maturity for Johnny Manziel? Are you surprised that he's doing this?
For me, with my experience in that field, I think it's great to see this kid do what he's doing. And if he follows the necessary steps that they ask him to follow in his rehab clinic or wherever he's at, I'm not exactly sure where he's at, then I think that it's a step in a positive direction for this kid.
You look at some of the distractions and you look at what he's meant to this team and how much they've put the emphasis and focus on him. Does Brian Hoyer wanting to leave the team, is that related to Manziel in your opinion? Do you think that had something to do with it?
To be quite honest with you, the team's kind of in a little bit of a mess. I think it stems from the top all the way down to the bottom, from owner Jimmy Haslam to the last player on the 53-man roster. If I were, to be quite honest with you, I don't necessarily think that Brian Hoyer is the answer anyway. So, for him to have an opinion on where he wants to play or doesn't want to play or a reason why doesn't really matter. I don't know if he's going to get a starting job anywhere else in the league, but I think that Manziel could have played a part in it. The ownership definitely wants Manziel to play, regardless of what anyone else thinks. That's why Shanahan left, and I'm pretty sure that's why Hoyer will end up leaving as well.
You cover this team extensively. You've had a chance of seeing a lot of the games now that you're back in Ohio. But I wanted to ask you if you believe that Manziel, at the end of the day, can be the leader. Does he have the skill set, or is this just too much pressure for one individual athlete?
Well, whether or not he's a leader or not, I think is irrelevant. I think if he could play and he can show that he can play, then the guys will end up following him. It's going to take what he can do on the field in order to get these guys to follow him. And in my opinion, judging off what I saw at Texas A&M in the SEC, I don't think he has what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. I think he's a very instinctual player with a crazy skill set of athletics. But I think it's something that's more conducive to an arena league team or a CFL league where he can run around and scramble. In the NFL, it's proven that guys like that don't really do very well. And as much as I hate to say it, I don't think he's going to be a great quarterback. I really don't. He's a small guy. I've seen him play live, and he's taken some hits, and it's only going to get worse. He's not Colin Kaepernick. He's not 6'5", 240 pounds.
Let's extrapolate his style of play, and let's say, for argument's sake, none of the distractions are in play. Let's say tough training regimen, he focuses, he comes out of rehab. You still believe that without that proper surrounding himself with a proper team around him would not be sufficient for Johnny Manziel to step up?
I don't believe so, and that's my personal opinion. I've seen guys look. If you look at someone like Michael Vick, right? For instance, you look at Michael Vick, world-class speed, world-class athleticism, and he wasn't even able to, take a team past the first or second round of the playoffs. And Manziel's not that fast. He doesn't have that strong of an arm. And then you couple that with some of the character mistakes, the character flaws that he has. I just don't see it. I really don't see it. I know a lot of Clevelanders hope and pray that he's going to be that guy. But in my opinion, I think it was a miss. I would have never drafted him. I would have traded him right after the draft if I was in that position to someone like the Cowboys and Jerry Jones, who likes those guys. And I think it was a business decision, to be honest with you.
Before we let you go, we're going to have some fun with you as we go through our rapid fire segment. I'm going to throw a couple of questions out at you, and the first thing that comes to mind, throw it back. You ready to go?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. How many wins can the Browns get under Manziel as quarterback?
6.
Who's the better football organization, the Browns or the Buckeyes?
I would say the Buckeyes.
Bigger distraction in Browns locker room, Manziel or Gordon?
Tie.
What would mean more to the city of Cleveland, the Browns in the Super Bowl or the Cavaliers being NBA champs?
The Browns in the Super Bowl without question.
LeBron James calling out his teammates, good or bad for the team?
I think it's good.
Words from the wise. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Stay with us. My rant is up next. You don't want to miss it.
Read Between the Lines is brought to you by enconfiance.ca. Find your dream home. Read Between the Lines is brought to you by lavalcosm.com. It's ball hockey time.
This weekend will be host of the 64th annual NBA All-Star Game in New York. It's a jam-packed event that includes the All-Star Celebrity Game, the Rising Star Challenge, and the ever-popular skills competition. And of course, it all culminates with the main attraction, the All-Star Game itself, showcasing the league's very best, as voted by us, the fans. Unfortunately, as great as an idea as it seems in principle, it's been an absolute joke in practice. Why? It's turned the whole process into a glorified Lifetime Achievement Award instead of recognizing today's elite. Take an injured Kobe Bryant of the last-place Lakers, shooting 37% on the year. I said 37%, an All-Star starter. League-leading scorer James Harden of the playoff-bound Rockets started every game, shooting 45% from the field, 27 points, over 5 rebounds, and 7 assists per game, left off the starting roster. That, folks, is basketball blasphemy. I mean, where do we draw the line? When do we say that this is about the 2015 All-Stars? As a fan, I want to see the NBA's best right now. Listen, I know he's had a great career, but if we want to see Kobe at his peak, I'll flip on to the 2011 tape where he actually earned the right to be an All-Star starter. Look, through the league, you'll see plenty of players with great bodies of work. That does not entitle them to All-Star honors. Ultimately, sports are driven by those who are most emotionally invested in the game. I'm talking about fans ducking into their cubicles to tweak their fantasy rosters, fans that lose their mind where Klay Thompson scores 37 and a quarter, fans like RBTL's very own basketball insider Mike Messiah. So when those same fans see a travesty like Kobe and his bum shoulder and Carmelo Anthony getting all-star nods over far more deserving players, they can read between the lines and see a system that needs fixing. My solution? We'll have a weighted system. Instead of the fans being the end-all, let them account for, let's say, 30% of the vote and the other 70% by sports writers, broadcasters, and coaches. Fans cast their vote for the players they love, with the insiders who cover the sports 24/7 having the majority of the voice. That's my take, and I'll leave it up to you to read between the lines. Until next time, I'm Adam Reid. We'll see you next week.
Catering services courtesy of piattorustico.com. Authentic Italian cuisine. Adam Reid's wardrobe provided by Carve. Available at carve.ca. Salon services powered by Glam Atelier, la maison de beauté. Guest of the Read Between the Lines show, stay at the Holiday Inn Express and Suites, Montreal Airport. Transportation services by AmbianceLimousines.com.